Next, we have Catherine Marie Felix telling us about the Home of Compassion.
You? When was the first time you were aware of your gender? For most of us, it was probably at school, maybe recess, or a moment in early childhood. Our gender identity then becomes an internalized part of the way we think about ourselves. And whether we like it or not, a part that influences our behavior with the world we live in. And we assume that because our experience was this way, it must be the same for everyone else. But Western society has become more and more aware of how narrow-minded this philosophy is. And new concepts and identities like gender fluidity and non-binary have begun to gain visibility. Unfortunately, the rise of these new concepts is often met with a solid opposition. I'm sure most of you have heard at some point a comment made about how unnatural it is, how these new identities are ruining what it's meant to be a family. Heck, even by making this TED Talk, I was warned by a certain elder member of my family that I shouldn't promote homosexuality because it's not the way God intended it. Now, I'm not here to discuss religion, but I do want to address the main argument said, the one that claims that everything outside of this heteronormative standard is somehow new and unnatural. For if we were to expand our worldview just a little, we would see how incredibly misguided this statement is. You see, the existence of something outside of the gender binary is not from 3 gender inscriptions found in pottery shards in Egypt to androgynous figures in Greek myths. These figures have always been found in the background of history. But while these figures were ultimately extinguished, I am here to talk about the one that survived. Because between the rolling hills of Oaxaca, Mexico, with strong winds and wild nature, lies my home. The Istmo de Tehuantepec is the cradle of Zapotec society. With our embroidered dresses and day-long parties, we are a hub of life and unique culture. This is the home of man, woman, and the Muxes. Muxe is a term we call those who were born male, but choose to adopt a more feminine role in society. Has been a recognized identity since pre-Hispanic times, and they can be described as a third gender, with their own place in society and singular qualities that make them stand apart from the binary, as they possess masculine strength and feminine sensibility. This is because this small region of Mexico serves as a bubble of compassion in what is otherwise a very conservative country. While the US has slowly been moving to more a place for LGBT people, it must be said that 37% of its population still disagrees with gay marriage. And that kind of intolerance only grows into a larger problem in the rest of the world. Mexico itself has only legalized gay marriage in the United States in September of 2022, and 53% of the population still opposes to it. How is it that in a country such as this, a third gender has managed to not only survive, but thrive through all this time? And more importantly, what does Muxe teach us about creating a more compassionate place in the world for every identity? The life of the Muxes begins very early on, as the recognition of this gender is natural for most in the Istmo region. When a male child starts exhibiting traditionally feminine traits that can be classified as a Muxe from a very young age, and their families, especially their mothers, will begin to bond with them through these feminine roles. The relationship between a mother and a Muxe is often their most important one, as it is the one that saw their initial spark of uniqueness and allowed it to grow. In a way, mothers have been protectors of the Muxe, as it is through their support and guardianship that these biologically male children are able to separate themselves from the provider role of their fathers. Through time, the Muxes and the women in their life begin to share more and more, from household duties, to spaces, and ultimately the role of the mushes is to take care of their mother when they grow old. The mushe and the woman sharing solitude in the last stretch of life. Zapotec society, from ancient to modern times, has and continues to revolve around the ideas of community and family. Everything from our town-wide celebrations, or velas, to the image of the Zapotec woman with a strong gaze and festive soul serves to uphold the values of community and family. And the existence of the mushe is key to protecting them as well. This symbiotic relationship, mushe culture to preserve each other. The mushe find their place in society through having traditionally feminine jobs. Cooks, estheticians, and embroiderers are roles the mushes traditionally occupy. The mushe have an especially focused relationship with the craft of embroidery, as it is a mushe-dominated industry, and arguably the most iconic industry in the Istmo region, with our embroidered dresses globally known to artists like Frida Kahlo, who wore them almost daily. The mushes are not only preserving the craft of Ismailian embroidery, they are innovating it. One of the main reasons why the designers of these dresses are mushes is because they strike a balance between creating something new and unique while honoring the core of its roots, like the one I'm wearing today. In a way, mushe embroidery is closely related to their outlook on the world, as they take an established feminine image and shape it into something that feels more like their true selves. And the predominance of mushe embroiderers has helped fortify their place in modern society. For me, the mushes have always been a natural part of my life, as this is the world I grew up in. As you can see, that's me at 10 months old. When I was 13 and I put on a proper pair of heels for the first time, according to my mom, I looked like Bambi on ice. "That's embarrassing," she said. You can't go out like that." So she immediately rushed me off to the house of a mushe friend so they could educate me. What happened next was an hour of correcting everything from my posture to the way I took a step and leaned down in heels, even to the way I should move my hands more gracefully. Because who better than a mushe to teach me about grace? The mushe have embraced feminine sensibility in such a way that my mother could think of no one better suited to this task than them. And I like to think of my region as a bubble of compassion, as the values that Zapotec culture held dear are the same ones practiced to this day. The Istmo de Tehuantepec has held tight to its roots, often choosing to stick to them before embracing customs. Now, that is to say they are isolated, creating a mixture of modern elements with Zapotec values in everyday life. And the existence of the mushe in this region teaches us many lessons, shattering the idea of what we think of as a nuclear family to what we perceive to be a normal upbringing in the modern world. But the one I feel most important to share with you all today is one of compassion, because it is compassion that takes place before any assigning of gender roles. It is compassion that should take place before treating a child any different for their sex. And it is compassion that is often lost between the bustle and noise of modern life. But if we were just to take a moment to slow down and to learn to value it again, then we as individuals can learn to create these bubbles of compassion within our families, our schools, and any place we inhabit in a world that desperately needs it. Thank you.
Well done, Marie. Now we have a brief intermission.